The fate of our world rests upon the edge of a knife. And our battle lies deep within.
Greetings and citations, everyone. So, with any World of Warcraft expansion, we have our main characters. The main people whom we will be following throughout the patches, throughout the stories, and the zones. Usually, we don't have too much information on who exactly we're getting, but this time around, we got a clear picture or an idea of who exactly will be tagging along with us for the most of War Within. These are somewhat some guesses, but still, a lot of them are blatantly told to us. Some are more major, and some are more minor. And if you know anything about this channel, and how long we've been speculating on characters, you know I have quite the fondness for taking a swing on what their arcs and roles will be. Some more successful than others. Obviously, this is very early, and we won't get much of an idea for a while, and this is mostly just my guessing with knowledge that we already have on each of these characters. Without further delay, let's figure out the potential stories we might be getting from the following 7 characters. The eldest of the Windrunners, Alleria Windrunner had been one of the biggest heroes for the Alliance in their war against the Horde in the First and Second Wars. Later, married to Turalyon, yet another massive hero and leader for the Alliance, the two would then be given a large task by the Light itself that would have them be pillars in the 1,000-year war against the Burning Legion, and the forever distant Twisting Nether away from their home of Azeroth. It's a whole thing. It would be in this long voyage and constant warfare against the demons that Alleria would learn to harness and control the powers of the Void by her mentor, Locust Walker, a powerful ethereal who'd also tamper in the powers of the insidious Void for his own benefit, putting her at odds with the Prime Naru, Zira, and her husband Turalyon and many others within the Army of the Light, whom she had been traveling with. To this end, Alleria would go on much later, and near the climax of the war on the fabled and corrupted world of Argus, she would harness the very power of the void-corrupted Naru, forever transforming her into what is now known as a Rendorai, or a Void Elf. Later, even aiding others along the path and becoming their leader and mentor and controlling their newfound powers of the Void. With the death of the old gods in Azeroth and the freedom of Xal'atath the Harbinger, whom had once been imprisoned within a great dagger, now roams free with a powerful and ancient relic gifted her by her new buddy Aridikron. Xal'atath fully intends to at long last take the coveted prize of the Titans, Azeroth, and Alleria will play a massive role in the world's defense against the ancient being as her ultimate rival. To what extent, we're not completely sure, but the Void is a chaotic force that has broken the wills of many powerful and wise creatures throughout its lifetime. It is my own belief that while Alleria will in fact aid us, will also be met with a rigorous trial that will tempt her down a dark path akin to Neltharion or Deathwing, who too sought to use the powers of the Void to benefit Dragonkind, only to be twisted into the very thing he was meant to protect from his allies and friends alike. I think Xal'atath herself will almost goad Alleria down this path to further her down the road to the Void, under the belief it will aid in stopping what is to come, but instead it will only aid the Void in its endgame, possibly. Perhaps bridging the touch to the Sunwell that Alleria once accidentally breached upon her last visit to it, which had its own ramifications to the Sunwell's entire being, summoning forth aberrations of the Void and dark ethereals from it. I ultimately do not think this will be a lasting corruption, but it will bear its marks on Alleria, that she'll be able to temperament and ultimately salvage her mistakes in due time. She'll fall, but she'll get back up to aid in the defense of Quel'Thalas later down the line. Once the mighty king of Ironforge and leader of the dwarves within their snowy capital, Magni had been the oldest brother to his two brothers of Bran, a famous world explorer, and Muradin, a powerful warrior and leader for their people, even fathering a daughter, Moira, whom would later have a child of her own too. And while the Dwarven Kingdom had its many troubles, Magni would handle it best that he could. But one such trouble that shook Magni and his people to their cores also shook the foundations of his kingdom and the world around them. A great cataclysm was on its way, and Magni sought the knowledge from their great creators, the Titans, for answers on how to stop it. It was from this that a transformation came upon Magni when attempting to use such a relic. It turned his entire body, head from toe, into a crystal. Alive, but in stasis. Conscious, but unmoving. While his kingdom and world believed him dead and others took his place in his stead under a dwarven council, Magni would indeed be alive and mostly well. Awakening when Azeroth needed a speaker more than ever upon the Legion's third and final invasion. Magni had become the very voice and ear for Azeroth and all of the Titans, and became quite frantic when the Dark Titan Sargeras had stabbed Azeroth right in her heart, leaving out mountains of her crystallized blood throughout the land. And while those two had sought to use this blood for their own benefit, were ultimately defeated, including the old god N'Zoth. The sword that caused such devastation, though, remained. Azeroth now calls out once more, but this time it's unlike before, where before it was only Magni who could hear her somewhat and could loosely translate her based on how she was feeling. This time the world itself is speaking to its champions vocally. With such importance laid bare on Azeroth's voice and the sword's significance once more, it's very blatant that Magni will tackle this role once again. But what does a speaker do when she now has a voice of her own? What does a speaker ultimately even do? I think he will speak for her still when she has trouble, but will have some second guesses now and then too, as N'Zoth and Ajara tricked him before with the guise of Azeroth's voice. Perhaps he'll at last confront that large hiccup. I think we'll finally see what Magni shall do for Azeroth, of course, but also the Earthen, whom he bears great resemblance to, who are going to be new allies to both the Horde and the Alliance. Perhaps he will act as an ambassador for more than just the Titans and our World Soul, but the Earthen as well. Not acting as their leader, but more so a bridge for the Alliance and the Horde. And speaking of dwarves, let's keep that dwarf train a-goin'. Daughter of Magni, wife to King Thaurissan, and current leader of the Dark Iron Dwarves, Moira is a powerful dark sorceress who did not have the best life as the daughter of Magni, and found a place where she could be herself and her own love inside of Blackrock Mountain. It was there that she both gained a new life, new leadership, and liberated the Dark Iron Dwarves from Ragnaros' clutches, though ultimately losing her husband to a band of adventurers who were sent to save her at the time. She became the new leader of her people after his death and gave birth to their son, Thagron II, named after his now fallen father. When her own father, Magni, was presumed dead, trapped inside of that crystal of his own making, as we had talked about, Moira returned back to her kingdom, followed by her Dark Iron agents, where she attempted to claim the throne and retain it by any means necessary. Anduin was visiting Ironforge at this time, even held prisoner there, and managed to convince his father Varian from killing Moira for her actions, setting her up instead to help lead only the Dark Iron under the Council of Three Hammers. Her uncle Muradin represents the Bronzebeards, and Falstad represents the Wildhammers. All three would act as a functional replacement for Magni until Dogron was old enough to lead. Moira proved that she was not only worthy, but trustworthy for the Kingdom of Ironforge and also the Alliance. With the Earthen being quite prominent, an entirely new kingdom founded on this new region, Moira apparently shows great interest in these distant cousins and brings Dogron to tag along. I assume that Moira will be quite integral in recruiting these dwarves into the Alliance ranks, while her son Dogron II, of proper age, will perhaps undergo his own trials to assume the mantle, similar to how Anduin did in Pandaria and other places. He was around the same age of 14 at the time when he went through his own trials. Ample opportunity to show what kind of prince and future king Dogron will be with his people and those who are similar to him, like the Earthen. Daughter to the once King Rastakhan, who had ruled his people for over 200 long years, Talanji had sought the aid of the Horde to deal with the threats within her kingdom during the time of the Fourth War. The Horde and her people, the Zandalari Empire, would ultimately be joint allies against those threats, successfully besting Prophet Zul, the Blood Trolls, and the blight of their lands, Gahun. Despite these victories, Talanji would lose her father to the Alliance, an act that is not so easily forgotten by her or her kingdom. While Talanji would become queen and pass the trials of her Loa and her own people, even naming the cunning and powerful Loa of Graves, born Samdi, her Loa of Kings, vengeance for the Alliance would not come, and the Horde Council, that now replaced the role of Warchief, did not show much signs of acting on it. Initially, Talanji was not only disgruntled by the aftermath of all the bloodshed and the armistice, but nearly left the Horde entirely. Such a thing would not last though, and the Horde Council proved itself to be faithful allies in her time of need, leading to her withholding any wars with the Alliance for now. Now, Queen Talanji and the Zandalari continue to keep the peace, and for whatever reason is founded on this new landmass. Could a Loa be involved there? A lost troll tribe that she seeks to aid? Is Vol'jin's rebirth underway and she's involved in some fashion? Is the time for vengeance firmly at hand against those nasty Alliance? Could she have a hand in recruiting these new Earthen as a mirror to Moira? Perhaps she shares resentment for the Titans for their involvement in her land in the creation of beings like Gahun. I'm not entirely sure, but I do not think she's about to start a fifth war or anything of that sort, personally. Regardless of how justified or unjustified she might be. A discussion for another day. My best estimate or guess is that Talanji herself will eventually be trying to unify and elevate all of Trollkind in some shape or form. And with the return to the Ghostlands on the horizon, the homeland of the Amani tribe, it would be a good call to start such a mission now with any and all Troll tribes throughout the lands of old and new. Son of Varian and Tifrin Wrynn, the late king of Stormwind, Anduin Wrynn had suffered greatly from the recent wars, losing his father to the Burning Legion, failing as a leader during the battles of the Fourth War, and ultimately nearly losing himself to a deranged yet powerful dark entity. Anduin had always, and still somewhat is a champion for peace, but that always had its own level of costs on him and others. Not really liking the burdens of leadership and given the opportunity to leave that in the hands of others, specifically Turalyon, Anduin has taken time to stay away and travel, trying to figure himself out. And while he did need time to figure himself out, after all of the ordeals and even losing himself and his very connection to the light, Thrall, who has gone through trials akin to Anduin's, has successfully stirred him from his stupor and brought him to aid in Azeroth's great time of need, to face this shadow that is rising on their world. It is here where I believe Anduin will once again come into his own, either as a leader or a champion of his own right. A human kingdom of Erethdor, no idea how they ended up there, is having its own squabbles and trouble with the light as the crystal that they draw from fades in the shadow. This isn't new, but it is happening more frequently with Xal'atath and the Rubians up to some shenanigans. I suspect that Anduin will aid them in restoring this light, and perhaps his own, or leading them down the means to rely on their own strength as he needs to. Anduin may very well find strength beyond not just the light, but the void too, and not just this region, but this journey as well. Anduin is still a broken man and will need others and himself to be figured out on this quest to defend Azeroth. His future is not yet sealed, but it was once assumed by the Prophet Velen that Anduin would be a key figure as a leader against the enemy of all. I'm still unsure if this fate is still destined, but I truly believe that Anduin will still be a large figure in whatever that future may be. I do not think that he needs to be a king to make this reality happen, and that may as well be something that Anduin will realize in the end. To be a champion for peace and a leader in his own right, but not a king of Stormwind and humanity. Lastly, the son of Duratan and Draka, the former warchief of the Horde, former world shaman, and current leader and representative for the orcs on the Horde Council. Thrall has gone down through many transformations throughout the years, from leading the Horde from its darkest hours, and later passing it on to others who'd either break it apart or hold it together. From being one of the strongest shamans to hold the world together, from losing it all out of a depressive state, and just simply falling apart. Thrall has fallen and risen the most, I believe. Now, Thrall has himself more figured out, and has renewed strength, renewed fate, and a place within the Horde as a renowned shaman and powerful warrior. A leader that the orcs and the Horde can once again turn to. Even has himself a loving wife of Agra and 2 kids of Durak and Rez. No longer hiding, Thrall has set himself up once again as one of the pillars that holds Azeroth together. And when whispers from an unfamiliar yet somehow friendly voice reached out to him, it's Thrall who rallies those that he thinks are well and able to defend their home from whatever shadow is encroaching on them. Thrall to me seems like a guide, having such a steep connection to the elements of the world around him. Not only a guide to understanding just what Azeroth may be babbling about. Yes, we have Magni, but he may well have his doubts, or it's handy to just have 2 of them. But a guide for people like Anduin, who seems directionless and, well, depressed. It was Thrall who roused him, so it isn't unlikely that Thrall may continue to help Anduin further down his slope. Or, I guess, further up his slope. This will also be one of the first times to my knowledge that Alleria, once an enemy to all Orcish people, and likely holds some resentment here and there for them still, will be working alongside Thrall, who was and still somewhat is the disciple of Ogrim, the same orc who struck down Lothar and led the Orcish horde on Eversong and Stormwind. I'm certain there may be some altercations and bad blood between Thrall and her, and that will ultimately prove to Alleria, over time, that some orcs can be friends, but also allies. Yes, I know Warcraft has been a little sappy lately, but it does kinda come with the territory now and again. Interestingly to note is that Thrall, while mostly having himself mostly figured out, is still seemingly trying to find a place within the Horde. Interesting. I am unsure what that exactly entails. Similar to Anduin, Thrall has had an on and off again relationship with the role of a leader. Now, Thrall knows he simply cannot hide, thanks to Sarfang's departing words, so I don't think this is retirement that is happening with Thrall. And Thrall has stated that he'll remain on the Horde Council so long as it needs him. And while we've gained new leaders in several Orcish clans, none have really risen to the same level as Thrall, not even really remotely. It is my belief then that either Thrall will still uphold his role as a leader of the orcs, then, until another rises to fill that role eventually, not anytime soon. So, originally, Thrall had rejected this idea of the Warchief, but I think at long last, in this hour of need, and his own problems now diminished, he's finally ready to take back the role that he was quite good at. I don't think the council is going anywhere either, as it's barely been touched on really, so what then? I think ultimately the role of Warchief will be changed to a very high rank to command the military powers of the entire Horde, yet still answer to the Horde Council. Such a role makes sense for Thrall to take on when the world itself is once again on the brink of war. Maybe not against the Alliance, but the threats that could plunge the world in darkness. That would be a good reason to amp up the military under someone who's capable of leading both the Alliance and Horde proper. This may also be why Thrall is the one gathering everyone up to approach this threat, and not somebody else. Yes, Thrall was the perfect person to find Anduin because they are like-minded souls and individuals, but it could also be because Thrall is leading the charge in this oncoming war. Finally, the Horde is getting its true Warchief back, in a way. And if it's not that, I still imagine him to be an ambassador of the Horde, or a high-ranking guide for what's to come next. I'll digress, it could happen. I'm not gonna put money on that, oh boy. But those are ultimately my guesses for these characters and what awaits them. Is it a little early to be guessing all this? Most certainly. But that won't stop me, never does. Let me know what you all think of these guys, gals, and pals. We'll be up to down below. And be sure to like, subscribe, share, and all that jazz. Join us on the Discord where we talk about all sorts of stuff and things. We'd love to have you. And if you like me enough, you can support my Patreon like these amazing folks here, as it goes a long way to get these videos happening. But until next time, my friends,